This is the Halftime Show with Omar on Pulse 95.
Yes, we are live in the heart of Sharjah on Pulse 95 Radio with your boy Omar. We're talking all sorts of good stuff today. A few questions coming in already about Man United and Liverpool last night. Mohamed Salah versus Cristiano Ronaldo. We are talking about that on the show today. We're also talking about how the UAE went crazy after Pakistan and India met in the T20. Cricket fans are going to be enjoying that one. And then also the segment that's very, very interesting, and it's actually relevant to what happened yesterday with the United game. Things are great when you're winning, but how much does defeat shape our character in team sports? Your mind has to be stronger than your feelings. Think about every bad decision you have made and how much of it was based on emotion. Think about that for the segment on number 3 today. My own team itself actually suffered a defeat the other day. And you know, we don't only talk about the good things here, we talk about things that we can work on as well. And having done that, it's actually put things in perspective as a coach and how to deal with defeats like yesterday's defeat as well. So we're talking about that on the show today. Remember, guys, keep your questions coming in. I see you guys jumping on the Instagram live at the moment. And Florin, I'm happy you're here today, man. All the way from New York. Florin is tuned in despite his team losing yesterday, but I'm sure you're going to help me pick those things that happened yesterday in the match from a United perspective and also from a Liverpool perspective. Stay tuned for more on the only place to be at 3, the Halftime Show on Pulse 95.
This is the Halftime Show with Omar on Pulse 95.
Yes, we are back and we are live on Pulse 95 Radio with your boy Omar. Thank you very much for tuning in, and it's nice to see some familiar faces in the room today, especially those who are traveling from across the world to the UAE to be listening to us live on the Instagram. Shout out to Adil, Florin, Sergey, Mustafa, Terry, Arib as well. That's a new one. He had some good questions the other day. Shayma is here as well. And who else have we got in here? Zara, Mustafa, Mo, Condado, Ali. Thank you very much for tuning in. Okay, right. So people are dropping all these questions already. We haven't even got warm yet. But I think Manchester United, we're going to start with this because actually something happened with my own team, which I'm going to talk about later on the show, which is kind of relevant to Manchester United. Manchester United hosted Liverpool at the Theatre of Dreams, where we got to see a classic 2 of the biggest clubs in England face each other last night. The talk pre-game was Cristiano Ronaldo versus Mohamed Salah. Who would you have in your team? I asked that on the other day regarding the best player in the world currently on form. Some people said that at peak it would be Cristiano, but right now they go for Salah. And yesterday was one of those games where you absolutely, whether you're a neutral, whether you're a United fan or whether you're a Liverpool fan, the gulf in class between the two teams was phenomenal. And it's the reason why it's such a crazy result yesterday, you know, them losing by 5, etc., is not because, you know, it was a crazy surprise. It's because there are elite players on show. And then we look at the coaching, and sometimes the coaches, like myself, have to take responsibility and hold themselves accountable for the results that happened yesterday. Now, many a time we've heard that Manchester United are an elite club, but not with an elite manager. We look at Liverpool and we notice that they have an elite manager with an elite club. Here is where dissecting things like yesterday's performance would have been very, very tough for United fans to see, because, like I'm going to tell you later on the show, I myself, as a coach, suffered the heaviest defeat of my career this week. Now, in doing so, what it does is it actually shows you who your players are, what kind of characters they are, who is to blame. It's very easy as a coach to take responsibility and hold yourself accountable. But when you look at Manchester United and you actually look at the defensive stats this season, what's really worrying is across the 20 teams where they lie with the results. Now, United have conceded 15. That is 16th in the league. Clean sheets, they've got 1, which means they're 18th in the league. Shots on target faced, they are 14th. Tackles, 20th. Errors leading to shot, 20th. The least running club in the league is Manchester United. Now, here's the thing. There's so much that we can do by dissecting and actually throwing the blame on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And I think that's probably the easiest things that a lot of people will do, is they'll probably blame the coach and say that it's his fault. There are also these elite World Cup players, world champions, players that have done it at all the different levels. And at some point, even with the game plan, the responsibility of the players has to come out. And saying that is, when you face an opposition like Liverpool, you kind of know pretty much their starting 11 every game, with a tweak or two depending on injuries. I think with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer believing that he can actually go out there and beat Liverpool at their own game was kind of the thing that probably was the most worrying. And in that sense, looking at Klopp and understanding the way that the double pivot happens normally in the midfield with his midfielders, who he opted to go for Fred and McTominay in a more pragmatic approach rather than starting off with Pogba, because defensively he didn't trust him as much as those two. But saying that, the way that Liverpool started and the way that things are, people are already saying that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer should be sacked. The problem with that is he's been there for a couple of years already, and in that sense we are looking at, it's quite, listen, I'll tell you something, I'm definitely not a United fan, and a lot of people will say, you know, you're probably loving this, but I'm actually not loving it. I'll tell you why. Because it's really hard for a coach sometimes to figure out what's going on with his players. What mindset are they in? Are they able to, you know, show their true personality and character on the field? Liverpool were outstanding. Mohamed Salah was truly, truly brilliant. World class at the highest level of football. His finishing, his movement off the ball, his persistence to be able to drag defenders away even when he doesn't touch the ball is something that puts him amongst the best, if not the best player in the world on form. But saying that as well, you look at the players like Henderson and how important they are. Virgil van Dijk, the presence. Alisson as well. Trent Alexander-Arnold, even though he's not one of the best defenders defensively, he's definitely one of the best defenders offensively. And we always say that you defend from the front and you attack from behind. With Robertson and Alexander-Arnold, if I can say that properly, are there better left backs out there in the world currently now? And then you think of Virgil van Dijk, who yesterday parted Konate and kept Matip out of the team. A couple of months ago, I had an episode on the Halftime Show, and I said why I think Liverpool could win the league this year. And a lot of people said there's no way they would, because Manchester City are favourites and Chelsea are European champions, so therefore Liverpool would be third. But saying that at the moment now, with the consistency and the know-how and the experience of Liverpool, that puts them on a totally different level with the way they manage games. And if you look at their midfield, probably on paper, you probably say that they don't have the best midfield in the Premier League. But what they do have is hard work, dedication, experience, and the knowledge to be able to manage a game through slowing down the play when they have to, forcing the play when they have to, being able to be aggressive with their passing through the lines, and being able to actually force, you know, Manchester United on the back foot. And yesterday, you saw how vulnerable the United team were defensively, which almost allowed them to smell blood. And that's where I always say you got to be very careful when you put teams out against them, especially when you know what the other team's going to do. And that's the only criticism I have of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Yes, he came out and he thought he could win, no problem. But when you see the movement off the ball and the way these teams are playing, it's a whole different ball game out there. And that's why I understand what he was trying to do. But there's a lot of people now that are calling for his head, and it's never nice to see coaches be asked for the sack. You could see how painful it was for him. Again, I definitely am not an Ole Gunnar Solskjaer fan, but I empathize with the coaches out there. I saw Steve Bruce get mistreated recently at Newcastle, and now I see the way Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is being labelled. Yes, Manchester United are an elite club. Did anyone say he's an elite manager? No, but I still feel that right now, if they don't make a change before the international break, it's going to be very, very tough. They've got Tottenham next, and Atlanta, and then Manchester City. Will Pep Guardiola put the final sword in the coffin? Let's find out. Anyway, coming up next, we're talking about how Pakistan versus India in the T20 Cricket World Cup has literally turned the UAE upside down. Find out why on the only place to be at 3, the Halftime Show on Pulse 95.
This is the Halftime Show with Omar Adori on Pulse 95.
Yes, we are back and we are live on Pulse 95. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'm getting a lot of messages on Mohamed Salah and on Liverpool, even from United fans actually, which I've got to take my hat off to them. You know, normally when your team loses, they definitely don't show up. But we're talking about other things today as well. We're talking about the madness that happened yesterday as Pakistan faced India at the T20 Cricket World Cup. And I think this is the thing, because people don't know that it's been 29 years since a victory like this has happened. And obviously you've got the purists of purist fans when it comes down to rivalries and when it comes down to cricket, both at the highest level. And with India normally dominating, it's interesting that it's in the UAE, and the fact that it's in the UAE, people are predominantly here, we've got a lot of people from Pakistan and India. So what's really nice about this, you see how passionate they are. Doesn't matter where you're working, doesn't matter where you're based, whatever city you're in. In the UAE, the fans are nuts about cricket. They love cricket. And this is why, seeing this yesterday, personally, I was seeing all the videos on Instagram and YouTube, and people really going all out to celebrate. And the fact that they're still celebrating, there'll be a few sore heads this morning. The 2007 World T20 final, the 50 over semi-final in 2011, Sachin Tendulkar's magic in Centurion in 2003, all might just feel a little better today. Looking at the scenes online especially, people are basking in the glory. I'm seeing also the messages here on the Instagram. Hold on, let's still talk about United. Cricket-wise, there's been a lot of people speaking about it. Can you not talk about SA losing to AUS? Okay, I won't talk about South Africa losing to Australia. Definitely won't talk about that. Okay, there are a couple of things actually saying, with rivalries, and this goes back, a long way, especially with a lot of people feeling that they have the superior athletes when it comes down to cricket, when it comes down to sports in general, but when it comes down to cricket, you always see a lot of the banter between India and Pakistan. And here in the UAE, especially because there's a huge population that are from those two countries, it gets real and it gets, it gets serious, and people genuinely celebrate from their hearts. And that's why even our very own Abdul Kareem on the morning Majlis, I'm sure he'd be one to share his thoughts on how Pakistan dominated yesterday and convincingly won as well, which again, you would think by a result like that they've been doing it for years, but it's actually 29 years of her. And that's what kind of makes it even more interesting, because we all like an underdog. If you can even call Pakistan underdog, I mean, surely, I know when I was growing up in the UK, the Pakistani cricketers were incredible. Honestly, really good, that I didn't even bother playing. That's how good they were, on a different level altogether. I'm just looking at your messages here. There's still more comments on Liverpool and Manchester United. Pakistan dominated more than Liverpool did. Wow, what a statement. It's definitely historical. And Davis is saying cricket is Mustafa's expertise. There's a few comments coming here, and the banter has already started on the Instagram live at Omar Duri. Florin is saying, make the cookies for the 19th of December because Tunji will come pick them up for me. That's interesting, because we obviously have our own Omnia Salah who's labelled as cookies on the show. Let's see, what else we got here? United were awful. I think we need more rotation within the team. That's interesting, Florin. Who would you rotate? I thought yesterday the fact that they rotated, maybe that would have caused a lot of people to question why Pogba wasn't playing. I know he got sent off later, but also I got another message saying, all credit to Liverpool, they were brilliant. And Mo Hajjar also said, looking at both teams, both have great talent. Liverpool, though, have come a long way and their players have improved a lot. Liverpool don't have the best midfielders in the world, but they are playing as if they are, I think as if they are is what he said. I don't know, I don't like seeing teams get battered. It's kind of hard normally, I've got a question here in Arabic saying, Omar, شو رأيك في مباراة يوم أمس and Liverpool or Man United? So in Arabic, what he was basically saying is, what did I think of the match yesterday? It's very hard to say, because I think Liverpool came out all guns blazing. United probably felt they could overpower them, and that's probably where the mistake was, because on paper Manchester United have a great team, but if they don't work and close the gaps in between the defensive lines and the midfield lines, especially when you have rapid players like Mohamed Salah yesterday. And think about, Mane didn't even start yesterday. That's another thing. Diego Jota scored and played very, very well. So it's about finding the right balance. I know, Florin, you mentioned rotation in the squad. I'll be interested to see what lineup would you have put out there, Florin. Let me know. I'll play some Elton John, Cold Heart, and then when I come back, I'm going to tell you why yesterday, watching Manchester United, this would be very strange for you guys to hear, why the related to me and my team. Find out more on the only place to be at 3, the Halftime Show on Pulse 95.
This is the Halftime Show with Omar Adori on Pulse 95.
Yes, we are back and we are live on Pulse 95. Thank you very much for tuning in. Okay, so a couple of things. Obviously, Manchester United, losing really badly to Liverpool yesterday. That's one thing to talk about, but it's also something where I can kind of empathize with the coach. Why? Because earlier this week, my own team that I coach lost pretty badly, probably the heaviest defeat I've ever experienced, and my cousin actually came down to watch it, which is even harder because you see your family that come down to support and your team loses that badly. Now, here's the thing. Things are great when you're winning and everyone's happy, the mood is up, everyone wants to talk about it, everyone wants to show what they're doing. And then when you start to lose 1 or 2 games, you start to see, the true colors of your players, the characters. And this is one thing which I respect about Solskjaer yesterday. He didn't blame his players, which probably Mourinho would have done, even though the players are definitely as responsible as the coach. But saying that, I genuinely think that it's very, very difficult because the coach carries the responsibility of his team's name, his team's honor, what they do. You can watch a team once and, if they don't play well that day, you could automatically hear people saying that, what's up with the coach? What's the deal? Why isn't he doing this? Why isn't he doing that? Why is the coach not doing what he's supposed to do, even though the players are, not doing their job? So it's hard to be able to, talk about these things and factor these things when in truth, it's not always the case. And so the other day when I was coaching, I was standing there and I was watching my players, and I know how good my players are. I know how strong they are. I know the characters. I know that they deserve to be doing well. But the other team was just better, and we were making silly mistakes, small mistakes, which cost us a lot. And I saw goal after goal go in, and I saw some of the players working, their socks off to be able to try and perform at the highest level. But unfortunately, it wasn't our day. And even those who had come to watch our team play previously would probably think, wow, what is this team? Like, what is going on? And probably the first person they would look at to be responsible is the coach. So the person who's planning and organizing and doing things behind the scenes, then you see a result like that and you start to question what can we do better? What Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has to do now is he has to get his players on his side. He has to keep the morale up. It's never easy when you suffer a defeat like that. And he has to also make sure that he has people and players. And the reason why I say people and players is because they're humans first before they're athletes that he can trust. And if he can trust those athletes, then he can produce, a better result against Tottenham, which will be this weekend. So there are many, many factors here. Mustafa's asked the question, as a coach yourself, what would go through your head after last night's result? Well, I'll tell you, Mustafa, that's a very easy question because I actually went through that this week. So you can't sleep. That's the first thing. You are replaying so much detail that you've encountered all in one go. There's no pause, there's no fast forward, there's no rewind button. You're trying to play everything that's happened. The difference between what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is going through and what I'm going through is everyone saw that. Whilst with my team, not everyone saw that, but in my head, it's something that I've replayed 1,000 times. The other question is, what would you tell a player like Ronaldo? I don't think Ronaldo's 36 now, 36, 37. There's not much you can tell a player like that because he has the experience of playing at the highest level and he has the experience of understanding when games go wrong. But one thing you have to do is make sure Ronaldo's on your side. And those are the factors that, those are the factors that you have to really, really think about. There's not much Ole Gunnar Solskjaer can coach Ronaldo, but what he can do is manage him and can manage his personality and character. and make sure they're on the same level, and maybe even listen to some of his players. And this is something else that coaches think that they probably shouldn't be doing. I sometimes have to ask my players how they're feeling, what they could see. Maybe they might see something that I don't see, and I think Solskjaer needs to do that with Ronaldo. He needs to be able to get his feedback and see on ways they can improve and work together to get that next result. The next result is so important for Manchester United and even for Condado, so that tells you a lot. And then there's another question here saying how you think Ronaldo will deal with that loss mentally. I'll tell you how he will deal with it. He'll want to get back on the training field straight away. He'll want to play the next match as soon as possible. The difference with these guys is they play every 2-3 days. They're straight into it. They don't have to wait a week for a game. So he'll be wanting to play. He's the ideal professional. If you could have, a walking manual, it would be Cristiano Ronaldo on how to recover and how to mentally switch on and switch off and how to reset and how to get, his mind off things and spend quality time with his family away from the game. So when he comes back on, he's fully determined. I think that's the way Ronaldo will deal with the loss mentally. And I believe that because he's played in so many different countries under so many different coaches, he understands what he needs to do. The question is, can Cristiano get the best out of his teammates to be able to match his effort mentally and physically? That's the answer to your question. K10 says, Omar, was the PSG versus Le Football and me PSG? You got to tell me more than that. Absolutely. And thank you very much for all your messages, by the way. I'm going to take a quick break and then I'll be answering more of your questions on the only place to be at 3, the Halftime Show on Pulse 95. Rosalia Malemente. Here we go.
This is the Halftime Show with Omar Adori on Pulse 95.
What's up, Tanya? Hey, Amda. Hey, Abir. Hey, Fahad. Nice to see you guys in the room. One more question coming in. Where do you get your inspiration for the health and fitness segment? Okay, so I'll tell you, the health and fitness segment, normally we do like one segment, a show on health and fitness, every other show at least. It comes down from the questions that you send through. So when you do actually send me those questions or you actually cover a couple of things, I get inspiration from that, have a bit of research done on it and kind of bring it to the show. So keep those, those coming in, because I think, especially now and with how the world was hit by the pandemic, a lot of people are more aware of health and fitness and are more aware of nutrition and recovery and all the factors that we mentioned in Reset. So I think keep those coming in, and thank you very much for inspiring me to do so. Mohamed Hajjar, Maguire as a defender. Oh boy, I don't know. It's, again, I don't like knocking players when they're down, but I just feel like when you think of Virgil van Dijk being the same price as Maguire, albeit a season or two in between each other, it's hard. It's very, very hard to put them in the same bracket. You look at some of the best defenders in the world. Even Upamecano went to Bayern Munich, and you look at Johnny Evans at Leicester. He might not be in the bracket for best defender, but how he manages with his current ability, he's not the quickest. I wonder why they don't play Eric Bailly. I think Maguire will probably be a better defender with someone like Bailly next to him. Again, that's just my opinion, but I think that's a tricky one. Who else do I have here? Squad plus coach plus and chemistry. That's a good point, Hamda. I think the squad is important. I think being able to manage internally the mental side of the game, make sure that they stay together. When defeats happen, sometimes it's very, very hard to keep the morale up. So doing things outside of football will help kind of gel the team. I think that's so important to be able to manage a team. And even if I'm working with my clients as well, sometimes they're going to come in and they're not going to have a good day. The way that I have to do, it's my responsibility to lift that energy up, get their mood up, try and get them to forget about things that for that hour they can focus and concentrate on what they need, and that's movement equals medicine. And if you're getting the right medication through movement, you feel better. So that's regarding that point. But great point, Hamda. Shout out to Sheikh Tariq Al-Qasimi as well, who was on the show. Fantastic guest. By the way, if you haven't checked out his episode, it's on the YouTube channel. Maguire defender, nice joke. What is the impact on a team when a coach is replaced? Good question, Arib. The impact on a team is massive because the backroom staff has to change. The philosophy of the style of play has to change. The identity of the tactics and the formation and the different systems have to change. the players might not be his own players, so he'll have to bring in some of his own personnel who he trusts, which is such a key component when it comes down to coaching, is trust. You have to be able to trust your players, because if you go and deliver, all the tactics and all the analysis in the world, but they don't actually come through with it, then the responsibility comes on the coach. So trust is key. He's overrated. Yes, I do believe that. I definitely believe that. We are reaching full time on the halftime show. Thank you so much. Here's the whistle. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, you can catch our show every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. Coming up next is the Afternoon Karak with Mikar Atiyah and Aisha Al-Mazmi. Fantastic show. Make sure you stay tuned for that. And I will see you back here every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, 3 to 4, on the only place to be at 3, the halftime show on Pulse 95.
If you liked this episode of The Halftime Show, drop a like and subscribe.
95.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram for all our daily updates and top stories.